front of screen, press submit, and want to see something. He knows that he's asking for something which is not known. He himself is playing with the data. So he creates a report request and submits it. Once it gets approved for that user that he can really see the data, it gets into the queue of execution, which is where the on-demand resources comes in. We have a queue system where we create multiple queues and has priorities of the job. So that particular job request gets queued. And if it's a high priority request, one of our people who really approve or understand that, they just bump up the priority and it goes into the grid execution. In executes, create a report output, which is what he's looking for, which is a tabular format, comma separated, imported in Excel, if Excel can support more than 65,000 rows. It creates that output and stores it into the user directory. And once it's saved, the guy can come back like after tea, coffee, or lunch, or whatever, based on what he requested. He downloads that file, and now it's all up to him how he wants to create the analytics out of the data.
Added to that, I have one more question.
Sure.
How do you manage the customized KPIs? You said about reporting.
Yeah.
How is it handled?
So right now we are not enabled the customized KPIs off of grid, but in the phase 2 or phase 3, as it started picking up, we actually have a metadata model that has been created where we allow user to define the metric first. And once he defines the metric, we know the data elements, we know the computation algorithm. We take it into the Pixscript, because Pixscript also is not that advanced, right? There are certain things you can do, there are certain things you cannot do. So if it's possible, by doing simple expressions, you can actually define those metrics in phase 2 or phase 3, and that gets stored on the metadata, and then the script gets, which I'm going to show how the script gets generated. When the script gets generated, it gets submitted, and then you have your derived metric.
So use an external ETL tool or a homegrown ETL tool?
Homegrown, using Pig. Yeah, purely open source. We don't want to pay any licensing costs.
Rohit, I have a question here. Rohit here.
Okay.
See, one of the questions I have is that, Yahoo being on a cloud, all infrastructure, probably you are doing everything in the cloud, provided by some specific, organization. So when it comes to the regular enterprises, they've been having their own local infrastructure, they have their own ERPs, their own ETL and BA solutions. So if they were to go to the cloud, how it is going to help compared to what Yahoo is doing?
It's a good question. Even Yahoo use some of the enterprise tools like data stage and stuff. But again, it's up to the group whether they are reaching to the point where their ETL tool and their ERP system cannot handle it. And now they have a need that they have to take risk and move forward and try out something. Once you reach to that point, you do not have an option. You have to try it because business is not going to wait for you. When that happens, you will create a grid and you will come up with a solution, which we did because we had petabytes of data and we can't really wait. We can't say like after 15 days to our user that your report will be ready. He'll say sorry, thank you, bye-bye. Right? So once you reach to a point, like for data stage, if you take a terabyte of file, it will take everything in its memory before it does any hash run and stuff, right? That's not acceptable to you because the system, either you need to have a system which has terabyte of memory. Very expensive. That's your breaking point. That's when you move to the cloud and try out all those things. That's what I'm going to talk about, my experience or in my opinion, whether you are ready or not. That's a good question.
Right. Just one point about cloud, the overall architecture.
The cloud architecture, right? If you have structured data, like the ERP data and the stuff like that, package applications and stuff like that, right? Here, what we are talking about, I'm making actually my comment and asking for your validation, basically, right? Here we are dealing with clickstream data. It's clickstream, right? A lot of clicks, a lot of content, a lot of metadata that is coming in. And what is the Hadoop as a computing platform, a data processing platform, not an analytic platform at this point of time.
Exactly.
Right? So the same thing, I was just thinking that this kind of architecture probably be utilized for example, RFID, where the data is generated left, right, and
Yes,
center,
of course.
right? Not all of the data is of lot of utility.
Exactly.
So this computing platform basically extracts the value out of the enormous data sources that we have got,
Sure.
so that our regular databases like Oracle or anything could process them more easily,
Sure.
right? Is my understanding?
Perfectly. Perfect. That's why I said when you have large data set and you reach to a point where your regular system cannot handle it, and you want something large and fast, grid is the place, right? Because you use commodity hardware and you use those systems to do it. Exactly, that's the point. If you're okay with the disconnected experience and you're okay with little latency, as a latency in the sense using a tool and getting the data, not as a latency as I want to see the report 2 days before I get it. I think that's when grid comes in. If you want immediate response, grid is not the right place.
Was it clear? So, from whatever I see, you tend to the disconnected experience for a good transition of this. Most of the time in analytics world, you're trying to play with the aggregates, but you sometimes want to look at the details. You want to drill the detail. In this case, the detailed data is not straight away going to be accessible because you're using a Hadoop to it as the data provisioning layer, right? So how are you handling that situation?
So you're talking about drill down, drill path, drill across, and all those things, right? Connected attributes and stuff. So we have that in metadata, but we haven't enabled through our web application. And the reason we haven't enabled through our web application is because we just wanted to try out. This was the first time that Yahoo wanted to try out. And when I talked to my manager, he said, you know what, I don't believe in you, but I'll give you 2-3 resources. That's how it started, right? Now it's getting traction, and people are talking on it. So now the world is open, right? Once people are okay with your disconnected experience, right? Now you can build the whole jazzy UI, drill path, and all those things, because after all, it's all programming. As long as you got the connectivity to the grid. Getting connectivity to the grid was the biggest thing to your web service, right? I mean, still people struggling with it. I'm going to talk about it in the next slide.
Rohit. Let me just interrupt here for a minute. Rohit, you run out of your time, but let's take another few more minutes.
You took my time.
Right. Sorry, my apologies. Right, guys, let's cut into your tea coffee time. Then I think this is important. Right.
Sorry.
If it's important for you to walk through the rest of the slides,
Yeah.
quickly do that, and then come back to the questions.
Sure. I'll just quickly finish because there's stuff that I want to show. And then we can even have coffee time discussion. So this is where I select my metrics dimension. I'm going to go a little fast here now. Now I'm going to go my head. Once I select, I define the filters. Filters are your report filters where you say this is the data I want to see based on this criteria. You define this filter. We have this and or thing. Once you click next, this is the meat of the whole thing. Once you click next, submit got approved. This piece here, the big script, which is not that easy to generate because people have developed tools that generate SQL, but this is like a plan of an SQL. How many people who have worked on Oracle or SQL Server, they look at the experience boundary. How am I going to connect it? That's what it is. That's exactly the experience boundary we generate using Pixel. Once this Pixel is generated, voila, everything is done. It's just waiting for submission and execution and coming back again. I'm going to quickly talk about my opinion. Is cloud ready for data warehouse on BI? A few folks asked that question, right? Again, I say it's your choice. If you have large data needs and you have a need that you need to do something with the data, you need to produce something, you don't have a chance to do it. Otherwise, you're not able to do it anyway. That's when data warehouse on BI on cloud comes in. But otherwise, as a data warehousing need, purely data warehousing need, it's not ready because it does not support all data types. It does not support complex like blobs and stuff that Oracle support. It does not support that relational thing. You'll have to build it in your program. Because Oracle also built it right in the program. So all those things needs to be built for your data warehouse and good experience like the relationships and stuff. What are the pros and cons of BI? I think I already answered a couple of questions. I'm going to skip this. The options that we looked at, custom solution and using Hive. 2 years back, Hive was not ready. We tried it, we compiled it, it failed. We said, we'll not waste time on this. We'll go without metadata model. Then came the microservices and Hive after a year. Everyone said, oh, microservices 802 can connect to Hive. Oh yeah, sure, it can connect. But you're talking about used data. And when microservices presents used data, it sucks. That's my experience, right? It creates an XML and it will take. So if you have 1 gigabyte of data, the transfer will take, say, 2 minutes. but the presentation might take 15 minutes. Unacceptable. So we drop that. Now comes Penthouse, right? You can use Penthouse because it's open source, you can play with it, and you can modify it and connect to the grid. So instead of doing all this thing, we thought, okay, we have only 3 to 6 months, 3 resources, I can't play around. Let's just do it. I knew a few interns and few senior folks. We just got together. 3 to 6 months, we produced a tool. Now it is being used. That's the story. So determine what you want, and if you really need it, it will be done. That's my belief. That's all.
Great. Thank you. So what we'll do is we'll take one question, and just give me a minute, please. What we'll do is I have a suggestion. Let's take one question. Once Rohit answers, we could break for a coffee. And Rohit, if I could request you to still continue with the questions.
Sure.
My apologies for making you skip your coffee. That way we don't skip the next timelines.
I think we should do that.
Actually, a lot of people are willing to skip their
Sure.
coffee. I for sure.
Sure.
To skip my
I'm open, I love it. I love talking on technology.
Here, it is your perspective on what you've shown on the last slide, right? There are commercial vendors, and there are open source vendors. And Yahoo per se, Hadoop platform itself is Apache project,
Yeah.
right? So much of the data processing is done using free tools, so to say, license-free tools. Which points me, or my thinking gets to the state where, hey, it's all free tags, right?
Well, free comes with the cost. Nothing is free.
Right? So that's the impression I get. And here on the other side, there is commercial space, like Oracle, Siemens, EMCs, all the other players. So are there any structures or guidelines that you could think of that this is how, for example, if it is a solution like this, for example, a fraud detection system in banking, if you were to, where there is a stable data transactions coming, right?
Yeah.
So how do I go about doing it? What type of vendors do I choose, mix and match for a solution?
So I'll go back to what Hari, highlighted in Amazon, with the red marks. If your business is critical, cannot afford to take a risk, and you want something to be sure about, guaranteed, don't try grid here.
No, I'm not even talking about the grid.
No, that's what I'm saying. So that's why you're looking for a custom these solutions which are packaged, because they will guarantee that your money is safe and what you need they'll provide. That's when you go with these things. But these things are not yet ready to connect with cloud. So whatever choice you make, there will be a compromise you'll be making, right? Somewhere where you take this commercial tools will give you a good support service, but they are also limited with their own feature capability. So it's up to a person what needs they have. If they are comfortable with MicroStrategy and their roadmap is we'll use MicroStrategy for BI and we'll use Grid also, then they'll have to come up with get executed.
Great. Rohit, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. You're not yet done, please stay there. We'll get your coffee out there. I request Shyam to give a small moment here to Rohit.
Can I step down?
One of us will get a coffee to Rohit, and you can continue to get your coffee and ask questions. We have 5 more minutes, right? We'll start back at 12 o'clock with an Intel video on cloud computing. Thank you.